Welcome back. This is part two of our discussion of materials and resources. And we're going to jump into talking about strategies for materials and resources, starting with environmentally preferable materials. When you and your integrated design team are selecting materials for a project, there are a whole lot of different environmental attributes to consider. And the tricky part here is that you're never going to find any one material that is best across every attribute. All right, so for your project, you need to make a decision as to which of these ideas, which of these attributes are your highest priority. All right, and that actually might change based on which material it is you're selecting. Um, and so you could take a look at materials that might support the local economy, the local manufacturer, materials that are sustainably grown and or harvested, materials that have an end of life plan that are able to be recycled or upcycled and avoid the landfill. You might be more interested in materials that contain recycled content or materials that are bio-based. You could choose materials that are the most free of toxins or the longest lasting, the most durable. Finally, you could take a look at how they are made and whether their manufacturing process supports human health and workers' rights. There are trade-offs and synergies to be made across all of these categories, all right? And you can immediately see that selecting the quote right material is never an easy thing. One important consideration when selecting materials for your project is called embodied energy. What is that? Well, it turns out we can categorize the energy consumption in the building industry, right, or in your actual project, into operational energy and embodied energy. So operational energy is going to be that is used as the building is being operated, and that would be energy used for heating, cooling, lighting. Right? Embodied energy is all of that was used to extract, manufacture, transport, and assemble the building's materials and systems. And overall, across the entire industry, a rough rule of thumb is that if you talk about the total energy consumption, buildings use about 60% of that for operational energy and 40% of that for embodied energy. So you can see 40% is a large number and something that we should be thinking about that. When you look at different materials, some typical construction materials, the embodied energy used in those materials varies wildly. And take a look at this chart from your textbook. You can see that on kind of the left-hand side here, concrete, lumber, brick have low embodied energy, moving up the category to by far overwhelming everything else is aluminum. And that's because of its energy high manufacturing process. So as you look at all of these different attributes and different criteria for selecting environmental preferable materials, it's a little bit overwhelming. How would you know which material is better than another? And that's where product transparency comes in. And as designers, we use two major tools to help us make those decisions. The first one we talked about already, it's the life cycle assessment. So you'd take a look at a material and consider all of the different steps in its life cycle, whether you consider cradle to grave or cradle to cradle. You're able to assess the impact, the total impact of that material. The other major tool that we use are material and product labels. All right, and these are important because someone else, all right, has done some of the hard work, taken a look at each of these materials and given us their opinion. Now, what is their opinion worth? You really have to be a smart consumer and look into this and think about the credibility of these different labels. Is it a first party label? Is it a second party label? Or is it kind of the gold standard of third party labels? Take a look at this section in your textbook and read more about all of these ideas. Finally, another tool that we use kind of under the label category are called environmental product declarations, EPDs. Right? These are important for LEED certification, and I've placed some more resources in your module for you to take a look at exactly what these are. All right, let's sum up this idea or category of selecting environmentally preferable materials by talking about the different strategies available to promote sustainable purchasing. All right, so we're talking about the specification and procurement process here during design and operations. And the first strategy is to identify local sources. All right. The next one is to overall develop a sustainable materials policy, and this can apply both to the design team, the architect and what they specify, and the construction team and their procurement processes. Finally, it's important to specify green materials and equipment. All right, that's kind of an overall strategy. And once you move into the operation of a building, one of the strategies here is to specify green custodial products. Thanks, everyone. We're learning about materials and resources this week, and you just heard about some strategies for selecting environmentally preferable materials.